Hello friends, this video on reproduction in animals part 13 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now if you talk about the fertilization in human beings, how it happens in human beings, here it happens internally. So the process is little different. So here the fertilization is internal. So what happens is it takes place in the fallopian tube. That's because I told you before also, the egg which is produced by the ovary, it gets released into the fallopian tube. How it comes to the fallopian tube? Because the egg cannot move, but it comes because the fallopian tube has got finger-like structures here which pushes the egg into the tube, and that's how the egg reaches the fallopian tube. Now during intercourse, the penis releases the sperms in the vagina, and these sperms then need to travel the entire space till it reaches the fallopian tube. Now once the sperm reaches the fallopian tube, then the fusion will take place. So the fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube. So let us see how exactly the process of fertilization takes place. So here what happens, the ovum comes from ovary to the fallopian tube. So this is the ovum, it comes from the ovary into the fallopian tube. And what about the sperm? The sperm was released into the vagina during intercourse. During intercourse, the penis will release the sperm through the urethra in the vagina. Now from vagina, the sperm will travel all through the uterus and it will finally reach the fallopian tube. So this is where the sperm is. So you see the blue colored structure is the sperm. So this sperm will then fuse the egg. How? By entering inside the egg. Now when the sperm enters inside the egg, we say that the egg is fertilized. So now we call this as a fertilized egg. So this is a fertilized egg. Now there are several hindrances that might happen. Now as I told you that when intercourse takes place, few hundreds of sperms are actually released in the vagina. Now from vagina it has to pass through so much of distance, it has to cross so much of distance, and sperms are also not very strong. So many of them die, many of them are not able to reach the fallopian tube itself. So as a result, very few of them is able to reach the fallopian tube. Now even if it has reached the fallopian tube, the timing has to be correct. So only if the egg has just been released from the ovary and the egg is still alive, because once the egg is released from the ovary, it will remain alive only for 24 hours. So if the timing at which the sperm has reached the fallopian tube, if that is right, that means if it has reached at the right time when the egg is still alive, and it is able to enter inside the egg, only then fertilization take place. So there are so many ifs and buts. First of all, many of the sperms will not be able to reach the fallopian tube at all, because it has to pass through so much of distance. So that is one thing. Many of the sperms might die. Third, many a times the sperm might reach the fallopian tube, but by the time it has reached the fallopian tube, the egg cell is already dead. It is also possible that the egg cell is alive, but the sperm somehow could not enter into the egg cell, because in the fallopian tube also, let us suppose maybe the sperm just remained here, it could not enter inside the egg cell. So because of all these ifs and buts, the fertilization which actually takes place, that is, very rare. It just doesn't happen that since you have millions of sperms, all of them will just enter inside the female body and they will just fertilize the egg. So that just doesn't happen. So the fertilization or the fusion of egg and the sperm is a matter of chance. So you never know when exactly the fusion will happen or when the fusion will not happen. So if situations are good, if luck favors, then this fusion happens between the sperm and the ovum, and we say that fertilization has taken place. So this is how internal fertilization takes place in humans. So now you might be interested to know what happens after fertilization. So this fertilized egg is nothing but the zygote. So this is just a single cell which is zygote, and this zygote will then gradually develop to form a small baby. So you might be interested to know about the process after the formation of zygotes, and that's what we will do in the next few slides. So let us see what happens as a result of fertilization. So fertilization is the fusion of the sperm and the egg. So as a result, what do we get? So fertilization leads to the formation of single-celled zygote. So zygote is a single cell which is formed. So this is, let us say, zygote, which is made up of one cell. Now what happens to this zygote? This zygote will then undergo repeated division. It will undergo multiple division to form many cells. So this will undergo many divisions, multiple divisions, and it will form many cells. Not only single cell but multiple celled structure will be formed. Gradually, with development, this zygote will form the embryo, and this embryo will go and fix itself in the uterus. Now meanwhile, what happens is, now this development takes around 4 to 5 days of time. So almost within a week from when fertilization has taken place, the embryo goes and it gets settled in the uterus. Now meanwhile, when fertilization takes place, the uterus prepares itself to receive the embryo. So how it prepares itself? It thickens its walls. So we saw fertilization happened. As a result, zygote is formed, which is one cell. This will undergo many more division to form multiple celled structure, as you can see here. So from one it formed two, then two cell structure, then four cell structure, then 8 cell structure, 16 cell structure. So that's how it will become a multi-celled structure. Eventually, this is the uterus. So the uterus is preparing itself. How? By thickening its walls. So you see this is the wall of the uterus. So the wall of the uterus gets thickened so that it can support the embryo. So embryo will come and it will attach itself to the wall of the uterus. And then gradually it will keep on developing and the baby will grow and the baby will remain there in the uterus. So the walls of the uterus should be strong enough so that it can support the baby for 9 months. Now, how exactly the embryo attaches itself to the uterus? Now, there is another structure which is formed that is called umbilical cord. What is this umbilical cord? So, it is a tube-like structure which arises from the abdomen of the embryo. From this embryo's abdomen, a tube-like structure will arise. And this tube-like structure will connect to another structure called placenta. And placenta will connect to the uterine wall of mother. So basically what's going to happen is, now this embryo is gradually growing, so it needs nutrients to grow. So how will it get the nutrients? Because the embryo is very small, it is not eating stuffs. So it will get its nutrients from the mother's body, because the mother is eating food, mother is getting all the nutrients. So that nutrient will get transferred from mother to the baby or to the embryo through these structures called placenta and the umbilical cord. Now the total development, and that's how the development of the embryo will continue, and the complete development will take around 9 months, during which all the different organs will get developed. And that's why you would have seen that when a lady is pregnant, she often goes for scan to doctors. So when she goes for scan, so the first scan, which is normally done after 3 months of pregnancy, so there she could only see the heart of the baby, because that is one organ which develops during the initial stages. But gradually when she goes for the subsequent scans, she can see the head, the hands, the feet, the fingers, sometimes even the eyelashes, the hair, everything develops. So over a period of time, all the different parts of the body will gradually develop. And finally, when it is fully developed, then the baby is delivered out of the female's body. So the connection here is how this is how the implantation of the embryo takes place in the uterus. So this settlement of the embryo in the uterus is called embryo implantation, because the embryo gets implanted in the uterus. So this is what happens after fertilization. So then embryo descends into the uterus in 4 to 5 days. So here the zygote was formed. So from here to here it takes 4 to 5 days. So you see how it actually moves. So once it is the zygote, and it keeps on dividing multiple number of times, but at the same time it keeps on moving towards the uterus. So finally, when it reaches the uterus, it connects to the wall of the uterus through the umbilical cord and placenta. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again.